Good afternoon and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Each week, I invite an expert from the world of business to share their knowledge, insights, and tips to help you with your business challenges. If there's a topic you would like covered, or if you feel you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie, and perhaps we'll be having a chat here one day soon. My guest today has more than 20 years' experience as a painter and decorator. He's now the executive director for BNI Dublin and Ireland Northeast and West, and he's been with BNI for more than 15 years. I'm delighted to welcome Eddie Stack to the You and Your Business studio. Hi, Eddie.
Hey Alec, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity today.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm looking forward to this story, an interesting one. So, I think it's fair to say you were not the academic in your sort of last year in school.
No, no, I won't say I didn't like school. I actually liked school. I was in a technical school where we did metalwork, woodwork, and all that. And that was really, I loved using my hands.
Right.
However, at 15, and some people listening might be old enough to remember the junior cert, so I did my junior cert. I was working part-time in Rocha Stores, and again,
All
some
right.
people might be old enough to remember who Rocha Stores were.
I am. I
Yeah.
am.
I was working part-time in Rocha Stores in my last year in school, and I was offered a full-time job there when I was 15, and I took it. And I had only one goal at the time, is that I wanted a Honda 50. And my
Right.
mother wouldn't help me. And she said, I am not going to be responsible for you going out on a motorbike. So I had to go get a job and buy one myself. And
Oh,
the
a great
motorbikes are
motorcycle. I
history
remember
from there.
riding
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic. All right, so Rocha Stores, an interesting experience. I mean, particularly at a young age to be working in, a well-known brand in Dublin. How did you find that? I mean,
Well,
how did people work with you and look after you?
first of all, it was in Cork. So I am a
Oh, Cork,
Corkman.
I beg your
Yeah.
pardon.
My,
Yes.
my accent might be a little bit gone at at this point, but yes, I was in Cork. Loved it. I made some fantastic friends who I'm still friends with back then, and I'm going back. It's more than a few years ago since
Right.
that. But loved it. Loved the experience. There was, I suppose, going back then. This is back in the 70s. There was a lot of high-end management that, look, I was put, even as a young lad at 16, I was put in charge of different departments, and great
Right.
experience there. But it obviously wasn't a job for life.
No. Okay, then. So something was going to turn your head and move you in a direction. So obviously painting and decorating. What attracted you to that trade?
Um, Again, I suppose when I was in school, I did a little bit of art. So, and loved it. Loved to be scribbling with a pen, and um, went into the painting and decorating because there was opportunities back then for sign writers.
All right.
And while we have all our lovely stickers and vinyls now, I used to actually paint signs outside shops and pubs with a paintbrush.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a skillful
So
job.
spent a few years at that. Yeah.
Right.
Finished serving my time then, uh, after what, 4 years it was back then,
Right.
and became self-employed painting contractor. So that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial life, I suppose.
Well, I suppose it all starts off like most people. It's relatives' homes and things you're painting, but you have to go out and actually find some business. How did you manage that part of it?
It was the early 80s, and I met somebody, again, networking, not BNI obviously at the time, but networking, and met somebody who got me a huge contract.
Wow.
Um, I was 23 years old, and I had over 20 painter and decorators working for me
Oh, wow.
at
Oh.
23 years old. However, we were then heading for a recession, and
Good old recession.
all the eggs in one basket.
Yes.
I was doing, most of my 20 or so painters were working for one construction company who went up against it in the recession, and they went bust, I went bust, and so did everybody else around us at the time.
All right.
So
How
while I
did you
found
cope with
work
that?
easy, how did I cope with that? It was tough. It was tough at the time. Yeah, really tough. I had a young family.
Right.
Um, but if anyone remembers back in the early to mid 80s, things were tough in Ireland at the time.
Yeah.
So I did end up eventually heading off to London with some friends of mine who were all in the same business as me, and started working over there. Came back, hoping I could change things here, and it didn't work. So I ended up going back there then, and look, um, separation in life and all that sort of stuff. But ended up in London for a couple of years then.
Right. I mean, not to dwell too much on having a business that has failed. Unfortunately, sort of in Ireland, there's always a bit of a stigma about it, which is very unfortunate because there's a lot of life lessons to be learned from managing your way through a very difficult situation for every business owner.
Yes, I don't ever see. I've never felt that stigma. Never
Yes.
myself now, because and I suppose look, I do a lot of listening to audible books and so on, and if you've never failed, you've never really made anything. And I
That's true.
do honestly have that opinion that if you have a goal or a dream, you just
Yeah.
have to have a crack off it. And if it fails, move on to the next one.
Yeah. They call that resilience today.
That's it.
We call it dusting yourself off and getting back up again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And as I said, everybody who's gone through it, and I think there's hardly a business owner who hasn't gone through an experience like that, has learned some valuable life lessons from
Mhm. I'm sure we had it again some time after that, but
it. We've had it many
we're
times,
still here. We're
unfortunately.
still here, and there'll be more. Yeah,
Yeah,
and we'll get up again.
yeah, of course
And
we
I
do.
do believe the Irish business owners are very resilient.
Of course they are.
Yeah,
No, you have to be. You really have to be. You can't be lying around feeling sorry for yourself. You
yeah.
must get back in the saddle and get going again. You were going to have a stint in France, though. That should have been quite an interesting experience for you.
Yes, there's a sort of a funny story to that. Is that I was in London, always looking for more work. I was a paper hanger at the time as well, hanging wallpaper, and
Right,
answered a job in a paper one day, and an Irish lad answered the phone.
right.
He answered the phone. He said, "Have you got a passport?" And I said, "Why? What do I need a passport for wallpapering for?" And he said, "Well, it's in Euro Disney."
Wow.
So I ended up going to Euro Disney, spending, I was nearly 2 years there. Super experience.
Wow.
Um, Ended up becoming a supervisor there. This was in construction now. And funny, I was over this year for the 30th anniversary, so it is over 30 years ago since I was there.
My goodness.
Yeah, but probably one of the nicest jobs I've ever worked on, and with my past sign writing experience, got on well with the Americans, and
Yeah,
so
you must have
nice
had an
experience.
interesting experience there because there's a cultural difference working in France, and then you're also dealing with the Americans, and so to bring that all together, and you're Irish, um, I think the Irish are very adaptive to situations.
We are, but I suppose the funny thing is that I think about 90% of the workforce there was either Irish or English.
Right.
It was, yeah, there was some French there, but it was mostly Irish and English workforce we worked with. A lot of Irish contractors got business over there at the time. But it was a
Right.
fantastic experience. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's great. And you then continue to spend some time in France.
I did. So I worked hard there, earned some really good money, and decided then I needed a holiday in the sun. So I
Right.
went to Antibes in the south of France for a couple of weeks holidays and ended up staying 6 months.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So
So, okay, you enjoyed that, but France had a limited life expectancy for you. There's always the yearnings for home.
there was, because obviously I look, I had family here. I had
Hmm.
been separated, and I had family here, and my parents were here, and at the time we didn't have Ryanair.
Right.
And if you wanted to come home, it was a 500 or 600 euro flight or a 2 day drive. So I just decided I didn't want to be that far away anymore and came back to live in Dublin then.
Okay. Dublin's not the cheapest place to live, so how did
No,
that
no.
pan out for you?
It, I spent about 6 months sharing the house with a friend who was somebody who has become a friend, and then bought a little cottage in Westmeath, and so I live in Westmeath ever since.
And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my studio guest today is Eddie Stack, who's an executive director for BNI Dublin and Ireland Northeast and West. Hey, we're just picking up. Eddie's just returned home from 2 years in France, or well, 2.5 years now, coming home. So, did you continue with the painting and decorating, or had you other ambitions?
I did. So obviously, when I came back, I didn't know that many people in Dublin. So look, it was a case of pick myself up and try and find some work. Found work with a contractor just for a couple of months until I got my feet on the ground, and then started my own business again here. So
Right,
that was around 92 or 3 or so.
right.
And then coming into the late 90s, I was coming close to 40.
All right.
And my knees kept telling me I shouldn't be down painting skirting boards anymore. So I did think at that point I've got to find something else to do. The whole internet and IT stuff was really starting to pick up at that point. I know it was there for a few years before that, but I was blind to it.
Right.
Bought a computer,
Hmm.
didn't know what to do with it. Phoned a friend of mine. I
Yeah,
said,
okay.
I'm after buying this. And he said, take it out of the box and plug it in. And I said, how do I know which wire goes where? And he said, they only all fit in one slot. So they're all colored. And I
Right,
honestly hadn't a clue.
right.
Um, Started it up, got the internet, fell in love with it, fell in love with the concept of what I could do and everything else, and decided to take some courses.
Right.
And then eventually, after about a year of courses of different, just doing the basics and different things, I decided I want to become an IT instructor.
As you do,
Yeah,
but that's what I love about people.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what I actually did at the time then, there was a good friend of mine, Jerry, who was a manager in a window factory in Dublin, and
Mm.
I stopped working for myself because I needed more time. I got a job off him in a window factory, 9 to 5 for a year, so I could spend all my spare time studying.
Wow.
Did part-time college, got a diploma in IT and teaching, and by 2000, I was in Intel, Hewlett Packard, ESB, different places teaching computers to people an awful lot younger than me.
Yeah, I mean, what you've done is you've discovered something that you've a passion for, and of course, when we have a passion for something, we are quite prepared to invest far more time in it. So that's certainly, as they like to say today, pivoting. I love all these modern words for things we've been doing all through our lives. So you found a love for that, and you were teaching people at quite a high level around computers.
Look, I started off with the basics of, if anyone remembers ECDL back then, it was
Yeah,
really European Computer Driving License or something it was called then.
yeah,
It was the basics, but I suppose as always in life, I'm always looking for the next edge and the next bit. And so I ended up uh, studying SQL
yeah,
and a program called Crystal Reports, which very few people were using at the time,
right,
and then some web design. And eventually, uh, 2003, I decided, well, where I want to go now, I want to start a web design business, and that's what I did. And it was only
right,
a small web design business, me building
right.
websites, doing the sales, making the coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, and there we go again. I mean, there's now new challenges presenting itself to you. Okay, the good news is you've learned how to run a business because you've done it before, but now you're in a completely different world. What were the challenges presented at about a business then?
Uh, I suppose in 2003, the biggest challenge in the web design and marketing businesses was trying to convince people that they needed it.
Right,
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of small businesses back then saw a website as another expense
right.
rather than a must for their business, and trying to convince people that this was the way forward and they they needed online marketing. A lot of, I suppose, people of my age at the time
Right.
mightn't have been up to speed with IT and online marketing and so on. So trying to convince them what they needed was a definite challenge.
I suppose like web development today has moved on substantially from when you were there because often you probably had to write program codes and things like that as opposed to plug and play today. So how did you cope with that?
I suppose one of the things I often thought about when I was doing that, and I did a lot of coding, and I often thought back, it's a pity I didn't spend more time studying in school because I could, for some reason, sit in front of one of these codes and I could find a mistake within seconds.
Right.
While it looked like Japanese to most people, it just I seemed to have an aptitude for finding mistakes in code, fixing it, and so on. And I did often think maybe I should have studied more in school,
All
But
right. I mean, okay,
yeah,
that's a reflection. You can't turn the clock back.
yeah,
But again, remember the motorbike was the priority back then,
that's it. Yeah,
which I presume you got, by the way.
I did, and I don't know how many dozens I've had since.
Well, there we go. You found
Yeah.
another passion. And obviously, the world of sort of web development, websites, and that was all growing rapidly. How did that sort of impact your business?
For the first 5 years of it, well, for the first couple of years, I struggled with it.
Right.
Um, but for the first, kind of going into 5 years, it was becoming more popular. Businesses realized they needed websites. It was getting a little bit easier. I was building a reputation for myself.
Right.
But I suppose what happened at that point then is I started to network a bit more and eventually found BNI.
Right.
When I say found BNI again, slightly funny story to that. A friend of mine tried to introduce it to me 5 weeks in a row, and like, yeah, I'll be there next week. I'll be there next week, and never turned up. And one morning he arrived at my door at 5:30 in the morning to pick me up to bring me to the BNI meeting.
Right.
Uh, couldn't wait for the meeting to be finished so that I could apply to join.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, so
it
that
was.
obviously had an impact on you.
Yeah,
And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Eddie Stack, who is the Executive Director for BNI Dublin and Ireland North East and West. We're just coming to that sort of pivotal part in your life, Eddie, where the aha moment came about the importance of networking.
yes. Uh, my first experience at BNI was in the Mullingar Park Hotel. Um, it, I didn't know it at the time, but the chapter was one of the biggest in Ireland and the UK. We had
All right.
44 members in there. I remember being in a room with all these people and thinking, wow, there are so many people here looking to help each other. It was structured, it was amazing. Couldn't wait to get an application in to become part of it. And uh, it all happened. But
Right.
but
Um,
it didn't happen overnight then, as I had to obviously work at this.
Before we sort of go into more and more of the BNI, just talk about, I mean, your life up to now, obviously networking was part of what you had to do to grow business. It's what every business owner has to do to grow business. So how did you manage with this before BNI sort of came on the radar for you?
I was in I was in other networking organizations prior to that,
All
but
right.
they didn't have the structure that BNI had. So while I was meeting people all the time, um, things were slow. It was
Right.
just I was still uh, just moving on very slowly. Sorry, I'm just thinking back on something else here.
Yes.
I had uh, through, let's say, 2006-7. I got some help from the enterprise board in Mullingar.
All right.
Super group of people. If you're young in business, get out, meet them. They're there to help. Um, and I started to bring in some things into Ireland that were totally new at the time, and now they're just everywhere. So in 2006, I started bringing QR codes,
All right.
right, and nobody knew what they were. I had seen them on some online stuff in the States. Nobody knew what they were here. I also then pivoted, by the way, to two other businesses as well, running alongside the web design. One of those was I had a CD and DVD printing packing business for all the big Irish bands and corporates and so on.
Right. So
And
you were burning CDs and then
yeah,
packing them and all of that,
yeah.
yeah?
And we brought in, I don't know if you remember them, they were CD business cards.
Yes, I do indeed. My goodness me, gosh, yeah, you brought me back with that one, all right. Hey,
So
they were top of the range at that time.
there were, so in about 2007, I started bringing those in and QR codes and different things like that. And then, and as I said, it was only me and my wife helping me at the time, just doing the accounts and stuff.
Sure.
And the enterprise board got on to me and said, "You're doing amazing," and so on. And would you be willing to put an application in for the business awards? And again, I was busy. They gave me a little push on it, put that in. And in 2008, the
Right.
company that I owned, ES Digital Media, ES for Eddie Stack, obviously,
Yeah.
ES Digital Media Limited won Best Business in County Westmeath in 2008.
Well,
And
fantastic.
I went on to represent the county in Dublin Castle then.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
lovely.
didn't win that, but
Yeah,
that
but
was
it's
a,
nice to be recognized,
yeah,
and people that, you need that as a sort of a G up
yeah,
in business to
yeah,
be told that you're doing the right thing.
yeah. So that's just something that came to mind there now.
Yeah, well, there we go. Well, let's not forget the important things in life. Um, I suppose moving on, you discovered BNI. You found yourself at some unearthly hour of the morning out in some place, and you can see plenty of people. But you're also seeing opportunity there, I suppose.
uh, yes, there was massive opportunities. And it was different back then in that we met in a venue. You'd leave home at maybe 5:30, 6 in the morning to be in a venue for 6:30.
Right.
Um, I did see people who would run off the minute the meeting was finished,
All right.
whereas it was Thursday morning for me, and I put in my diary when I had the aha moment in BNI put in my diary from 6:30 on a Thursday morning until 11 a.m. on Thursday morning, and
All right.
blocked it out for many years after that, because if I was going to get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to a venue at 6:30 to meet some people, I wasn't going to run off straight after it. I was going to take that morning as my marketing morning for my business, and I would do one-to-one with one or two members, or have group meetings with some members after the regular meeting was finished. And that's what I call using the system.
Right. And you're correct. I mean, as I said, people turn up at these things and then rush off, but then they don't appreciate what the importance of getting to know people. I mean, let's just talk about networking. I mean, you're involved in probably the biggest franchise in networking in the world. Um, let's just talk for a minute about the importance of one-to-one meetings and getting to know people.
Well, look, in BNI, we talk a lot about know, like, and trust.
Right.
And if I'm going to refer you to some of my close family or one of my best customers, I am not going to do that until I build that know, like, and trust with you.
Sure.
And turning up at a meeting for an hour and a half and doing a short presentation and running out the door at 8:30 when it's over is not going to build that know, like, and trust.
Right.
And that's, I think a lot of people don't realize, they think they pay a membership into any networking organization and that's it. That's me
Yes.
sorted. Yeah. It's not quite like that. And I often refer to this as like, uh, I can buy a gym membership. Is that going to get me fit?
Yes, it's a good
Yeah.
analogy.
And I can turn up at the gym. And is that going to get me fit? Well, unless I get somebody to show me properly how to use the machines and learn all about them, then I'm not going to get fit. Possibly, not only am I not going to get fit, but I might actually do damage to myself and put
Yes.
myself way back.
Hmm.
So we do have to, when we come into any networking organization, learn about it, learn about the people you're working with, find the good people that might be a good synergy with you to become good referral partners to you. I prefer to talk about our members as referral partners.
Right.
And it's look, simply work the system. And the know, like, and trust is so important.
I suppose as we enter the last 3 minutes of our interview, and I just want to stay very much on this sort of importance of networking and the BNI structure of it. I think you identified something very importantly there. People often ask, what is marketing? For you, marketing was that meeting once a week and blocking out the time afterwards to get to know people.
Yes. And I suppose, again, when I'm speaking to some of our members in our chapters on this, and they say, "Oh, that's putting more time into BNI." It's not putting time into BNI. It's putting time into your business. good quality time into your business. And if you can build those strong relationships, they go on for many, many years to come. And
Yes.
yeah, and look, I've made so many friends and so many good colleagues through BNI that it's just been phenomenal.
I suppose another way of looking at it is by investing time in your marketing plan, you're now building relationships with people who will market you.
Yes.
So you build a marketing team.
Yeah, that's it. You build a whole team. And look, a little joke we have in BNI is that if I ask you how many people have you got working for you, and you say, well, I have two, and I say, what about the other 25 people in your chapter? They're
Yeah.
working for you too. Yeah.
I suppose for people who are not familiar with BNI, how could they find out more? Or I presume they can attend free of charge some of these meetings if they want to.
Yes, and we do have, I suppose, one good thing that has come from the pandemic for us is we transitioned to online meetings within 5 days.
Right.
From all our meetings for 22 years prior to that were in venues, and we now have three products, and the three products are in person. We have some of our chapters who have gone back in person every week in a venue. We also have permanent online chapters now,
Right.
and we then have a hybrid version, which is, and we do believe in this because people need to meet people. I'd like to see how tall you are at some point. Um,
Yes.
and people do like to meet people. So we have a hybrid, which is the first meeting of the month is in a venue and all others are online. And they're still doing our one-to-ones online, which allows us to do more. And then we have 2 times in the day at the moment where we're possibly adding more to that, but it's 7 a.m. in the morning and 10 a.m. in the morning as well. So we've times and formats that suit most business people now.
I suppose in the last sort of 30 seconds we've got, how can people find out more or contact you and be steered in that right direction?
bni.ie. If you go to bni.ie, you'll find my details and the other directors in the country's details. But as well as that, there's a chat box there, and the people on the chat will definitely put you in touch with us.
Great. What a fantastic way to finish the show. Thanks to my guest, Eddie Stack, for coming into the You and Your Business studio. Thanks also to Sam and Sound. The podcast of today's show will be available on dublincityfm.ie from tomorrow. Thank you for your company, and please remember to join me, Alec Drew, again next week at the same time, 12:30, right here on 103.2 Dublin City FM for another edition of You and Your Business.
Thank you.
Yeah.